Congressman Mac Thornberry is the chairman of the House Armed Services Committee. He's joining us now live from Capitol Hill. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for joining us. Tell us why you disagree with Nancy Pelosi. You disagree with this deal. You don't like it.
Well, I think it's always tempting for us to feel relief when a complex international problem is solved by diplomacy. But, you know, history tells us that sometimes what looks good on one day doesn't look so good on future days. And so my concern here is primarily what this deal gets us. It gets us 9 months. The administration says today that Iran could have a bomb within 3 months. The goal of this deal is to stretch that out for a whole year. So in exchange for those 9 months of extra time, they get something like $140 billion of sanctions relief, which they will use to fuel their destabilizing aggressive agenda throughout the Middle East. So if you just weigh it, even if it goes perfectly, just the way that the negotiators want it to go, I'm not sure that's a good deal for us.
So what's the alternative? What would happen if the U.S. right now, for example, let's say, and I suspect it probably won't happen, but let's say the Congress, the Senate, and the House rejects this deal, overrides a presidential veto. Well, what would happen next?
Yeah, I think the better option is to keep to the goal that the president himself set out originally, and that it would be to dismantle and stop the Iranian nuclear program. As was just pointed out, the goal changed in the course of these negotiations, and that's really historic. As a matter of fact, Secretary Kissinger and Secretary Shultz wrote about that earlier this year. Our goal shifted from stopping their nuclear program to just stretching it out a bit. And so keeping the sanctions on, keeping that pressure on, keeping the goal the same, I think is a better outcome. When the president said it's either this or war, he's trying to set up straw men. That's not the only option.
So when the Secretary of State John Kerry, who negotiated this agreement, when he says for 10 years the U.S., others were imposing very strict sanctions against the Iranians, but that didn't stop them from going forward with accelerating their nuclear program and to where they are right now, you say?
Yeah, it is always possible that even with the sanctions, they continue their nuclear program. But obviously the sanctions were having an effect. Obviously, Iran has been very, very anxious to remove those sanctions, and so I think that is, keeping that pressure on, showing some strategic patience is a better option rather than rushing for a deal that is even if works perfectly, only buys us an extra 9 months of time.
But at this point, given what's happened over these last several months of negotiations, if the U.S. were to walk away, there's no guarantee Russia or China or even the European allies would walk away. They might go ahead and ease their sanctions despite whatever the U.S. does. And the fact that if the U.S. imposes these sanctions, there would be restricted or limited impact on the Iranians, right?
Yeah, you're right in the sense that you can't predict or guarantee what other nations would do. And so you're also right, there are a number of other factors swirling around Iran's strategic calculation. One of those factors is U.S. military positioning, our defense budget, our restrictions on our efforts in Iraq, and all of that perception about whether the U.S. is willing to militarily stand up for our security interests. Obviously, that influences Iran, too, in what they think they can get. So, if your point is you can't turn the clock back and start over, of course you're right. Still, that does not say that this deal and the extra 9 months versus the $140 billion more dollars that goes into funding the Houthis, Hezbollah, even the Taliban in Afghanistan, the militias in Iraq, that is a good deal.
Yeah, they're going to have a lot of cash. Iranians, the unfrozen Iranian assets, as you say, maybe $140, $150 billion, but then they're going to get tens of billions of dollars more in oil exports once they really get going. They're the fourth largest producer of oil potentially in the world. They're going to get a lot of money. They'll be able to use that in ways that presumably the U.S. won't be happy with, but we'll continue to watch what's going on. Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, sir.